Moody's revelation.
Program is intended for mature.
Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast today. It is November 24th, Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. So Marjorie Taylor Greene resigns from Congress effective January of this year. Thanks for joining me today. Also in the news, Democrat Spooks behave seditiously. Establishment spooks encourage U.S. service members to ignore orders. From the Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump. Thanks for joining me today. Appreciate you. So also, Marjorie Taylor Greene is leaving Congress. Well, we all know the adage, winners never quit and quitters never win. And nobody likes a quitter. So I don't really know why she's doing this exactly. Let's see here. Not getting picture in picture, but that's okay. Incorporating some new tech here today, so just trying to get it all to work out straight. So why don't we just get into the headlines for today, November 24th, 2025. We're going to start here with PJ Media. The Clintons risk prison if they defy Epstein subpoenas. So if you didn't hear, Bill and Hillary Clinton, who went to Epstein Island as a couple, and one notorious time they went, Bill Clinton dodged or got rid of his Secret Service detail to go to Epstein Island himself. He's a known philanderer, not surprising there in the least. And the story goes on to say, House Oversight Committee James Comer is laying down the law for Bill and Hillary Clinton. He's asking them to show up in person for depositions in the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking investigation, or face prison. Comer warned the former president and his twice failed presidential candidate wife that dodging these subpoenas with written answers will not cut it. It's a clear no-go and could invite a contempt of Congress charges. Originally subpoenaed in August, the Clintons were asked their lawyer to request that the committee accept written statements rather than require them to sit for live depositions. The attorney, David Kendall, claimed that the written answers would be the most efficient and equitable approach. Comer said, no fucking way. So the Republicans are investigating, which is a good thing. However, we're a little worried now because the Republicans often investigate things that don't come to fruition. Now, we know that the Comey case, the case against former FBI Director James Comey, that case is extremely dicey. It may or may not go through, but they should keep going with other indictments, including Bill and Hillary Clinton, if they don't show up for a congressional investigation. It's certainly going to make for good TV. All right, moving on with the headlines. More investigations here. Just the news, Vindman responds to DOD requesting House investigate his work. It calls it a sham. Representative Eugene Vindeman, a Democrat of Virginia. Why am I not surprised? So Virginia is full of spooks, including Vindman. And now the new, I guess, governor, right? Spanberger. She was also a spook. And he says he's not afraid after the Department of Defense asked the U.S. House to investigate his Ukraine work. Why? Is because him and his brother are spooks, sheep dip, just like the other Congress people that put out that TikTok video, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. It's the intelligence agencies, which are representing the establishment, which are representing the elite. Story goes on to say, Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth just launched a sham investigation into me for my support for Ukraine. Why is he supporting Ukraine? Who knows? So much for America First. All because I demanded Trump's call transcripts with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman be released. Instead of transparency, I was met with retaliation. I think it goes on. Yep. The Pentagon's General Counsel, Earl Matthews, alleged that Vindman and his twin brother Alex were acting as paid brokers for American defense firms without U.S. government approval, which they were. Not just defense firms, but the establishment as a whole. They're sheep-dipped. They're working for the elite and the establishment and anything to get rid of Trump. Matthews alleged that they were seeking contracts with Ukraine after Russia's invasion in 2022. Probably well before that. We all knew that the invasion was coming. And it was done, NATO's expansion was done on purpose. The brothers served on the National Security Council when Trump was first impeached in 2019. Moving on to the next headline, just the news. House Intel chief warns foreign actors are conspiring with Americans to sow discord inside the U.S. Obviously. This is obvious, right? Because, and we're going to get into the article, but it's, foreign actors, okay, foreign nation states, yes, perhaps, but foreign actors meaning the global elite using cutouts and groups to sow discord. But they're teaming up because they all want to do the same thing, including the Chinese. Article starts out by saying the House Intelligence Committee, Rick Crawford, Republican of Arkansas, is pressing for major counterintelligence reforms across spy agencies, starkly warning that foreign actors are conspiring with Americans to destabilize the divide in the United States. I think there is a whole network of both state and non-state actors that bring that to bear here in the United States. That is to exploit any kind of political divide that might exist or schisms that may exist even within the political party. They help sow discord. We've seen malign influence from state actors that include China and Russia, but there's also the non-state actors. He goes on to say, we've seen malign influence from state actors, China and Russia, but they're also the non-state actors that are doing the bidding of a nation state. And some that even aren't doing the bidding of a nation state. There are plenty of groups that the elite use, including our own military and federal government, to help sow this discord. And that includes the statements made by Crow and other representatives and senators, including Alyssa Slotkin, specifically meant to sow discord within the U.S. Armed Services, which, of course, we're calling sedition. So moving on from Fox News, Democrat senator not aware if Trump gave any illegal military orders amid video controversy. Took part in urging service members to refuse illegal orders. What we see here with this video it is basic. Of course, there was no illegal order. There was never any accusation of illegal order. And urging service members to determine on their own what's legal and what's illegal. Obviously, if it's glaring, if you're asked to shoot American civilians, which they actually floated on Face the Nation. The Representative Crow from Colorado went ahead and suggested that, he said it really in passing. I'm going to have more clips going in the future. I got this new tech going, so it seems to be working. And I usually take clips from Face the Nation, which I wanted to do, but I just want to make sure we're running pretty good today. But Representative Crow from Colorado did indeed happen to quickly mention, well, if Trump orders troops to shoot somebody, and also National Guard, when they're serving in the United States domestically, are guardsmen. They're not troops, they're guardsmen. And so they're there to restore order. They're not going to shoot anybody, certainly, unless there's widespread looting or some sort of a riot. But even then, they're unlikely to do so, even in order to do so. But there was no illegal order, and that's the point. There was no illegal order, and they're just stirring up controversy, sowing chaos, just like was mentioned by Rockford, that it's the socialist is a conspiracy, it's a contagion. And so states like China, Russia, Iran are working with leftists within the United States to sow discord, wittingly or unwittingly, by domestic partners here, whether they're Democrats or whatever. I'm sure the academics are witting, but some of the street people are unwitting. So the next headline here is from Zero Hedge. They threw a grenade, now feign outrage, no sympathy for TikTok traitors. So Representative Byron Donalds, a Republican of Florida, lit into Democrats Friday on Capitol Hill, blasting their viral video urging military mutiny against President Trump as a cynical grenade lobbed for clicks and clout, then dismissing their crocodile tears over Trump's jail threats as BS with zero moral high ground. Right. So good for Byron Donalds. I always liked him. Realistically, it was borderline, right? So it's borderline that these representatives and senators decided to put out this video knowing if they said, we want you to not obey any illegal orders, without saying that there are illegal orders there. I'm trying to figure something out here, why something isn't showing up, but whatever. So in any case, they said illegal orders without offering any evidence of an illegal order. So why did they do this in the first place? It is to sow seditious ideas among the military. But why are they doing this? Because they want them to disobey order. Because, as I said previously, that I think what's coming is a false flag. See, we warned you about whether or not you should obey illegal or illegal orders. Byron Donalds goes on to say from this Zero Hedge article, I'm not going to give them any standing about how do they feel. That's BS. They knew what they were doing. They created a political stunt to get a response, and they didn't like the response. Donalds urged on. He says what they are doing is trying to throw literally a grenade into the room. It goes off, and then they're going to claim outrage. They have no moral standing to claim outrage. Remember, most of these senators and representatives are sheep-dipped. They're either were in intelligence or in the armed services, which makes them obviously, prime candidates to get sheep-dipped and then go into public life or civilian life, but what they're doing is working for intelligence. So this amounts to the 50 intelligence officials letter. It's the same sort of thing again and again and again. The United States' own intelligence services are trying to undermine the president of the United States. Of course it's seditious. Here's another article from Fox News. Trump therapist says he received threats after calling Trump derangement syndrome real pathology. Jonathan Albert faced backlash following Wall Street Journal op-ed about patients obsessed with the president. Well, it's absolutely true. But the reason he's receiving death threats is connected to what I was just talking about, which is it's the military psyop that was perpetrated upon the electorate, the residents, the people living within the United States to develop Trump derangement syndrome. It's halfway between a demonization and psychic driving. They did this with military precision. So selective leaks of certain things about Trump, then demonizing them through the media, demonizing President Trump during the media, and then ostracizing, I don't know how this happened, but it happened in my own family, ostracizing anybody who shows support for Trump. Amazing. And it still pervades on through this day that people, if you succumb to the psyop, it's a cult. You can never get out of a cult because of the conditioning, the psychological conditioning. And so it's not only the people that were conditioned. Don't say I'm crazy when people are acting crazy. Don't say I'm being hysterical when they are being hysterical. But that's the fact. They put forth this military psyop to demonize people against Donald Trump because Donald Trump happened to team up with the Tea Party, libertarian faction of the Conservative Party, which spells disaster for everything corrupt, certainly, and to end wars in the military-industrial complex and all these things. So now you have the death threats coming from intelligence agencies and people that succumb to the psyop, the Trump derangement syndrome. It's okay not to like somebody. You don't have to. I don't really like Trump personally, not that much. But that's not about, governance is about policy. It's not about, and it's time for someone to come in and start breaking toys. One American News, Trump terminating deportation protections for Somalis in Minnesota. That's good news. Trump went on to say, Minnesota, under Governor Tim Walz, is a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity. I am, as President of the United States, hereby terminating, effective immediately, the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of that great state, and billions of dollars are missing. Send them back to where they came from. It's over. It is over. And it should be over. And we just reported last week about the fraud that's going on in Minnesota, and that they've tracked a lot of the money from the social safety net fraud, Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, other fraud. The money the fraudsters get apparently are sending it back to Somalia to fund, and in other parts of Africa, Al-Shabaab, the leading sub-Saharan Africa Islamic militant group. terrorist group. More news from the Washington Times. ICE holds a record 65,000 migrants, arrests, deportations reach record pace. The agency reported holding more than 65,000 migrants as of November 15th, a record by far. It had fewer than 60,000 in late September, just before the government shutdown, and fewer than 40,000 in January when President Biden turned over power to President Trump. Fueling the surge in arrests, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement averages nearly 1,200 arrests daily since October 1st, a record pace. ICE is deporting illegal immigrants at an even higher rate, more than 1,250 daily. If that held for 12 months, it would exceed 450,000 for the entire year, surpassing the record set in 2012 by the deporter-in-chief, Barack Obama. So I hope we get there. So here's an article from the New York Times. Two men, one identity, they both paid the price. Thousands of undocumented workers rely on fraudulent Social Security numbers. One of them belonged to Dan Kluver. So I expect that Dan Kluver is a resident. The government estimates that as many as 1 million undocumented workers are using fraudulent or stolen Social Security numbers. Of course they are, maybe more. A survival tactic used to pass background checks and get jobs. The numbers are skimmed from data breaches sold in the black market online for as little as $150 or handed out in border towns by human smugglers, supported by the Biden administration. Many numbers connect back to U.S. Citizen children. Dead people are Puerto Ricans whose numbers circulate easily across the mainland, but thousands of others belong to people like Kluver, Americans whose names and identities are no longer theirs alone. And supposedly, this guy was arrested as an illegal alien, and it turns out he's a citizen. Post-millennial, dozens of anti-ICE agitators arrested after blocking Miami detention center. I thought I had text on that. Perhaps not. Good. Like I said, you can stand there with a sign. You cannot stand in front of or any way interfere with the duties or the mission of law enforcement, federal or otherwise. So you shouldn't be allowed to get in front of them and yell in their face or get in front of them. You could stand off to the side and chant and hold a sign. More power to you. But I'm glad they're starting to arrest these folks. National Review. Sam Alito issues stay in Texas redistricting case. This is big. If you didn't hear, a 3-judge panel in Texas federal court holding unconstitutional the state's redistricting proposal, which aims to redraw boundaries in a way the Republican-controlled state government hopes to yield 5 additional Republican-leaning seats in the time for the 2026 midterms. So here's where this gets interesting because, first of all, the dissenting judge on the panel wasn't allowed to formally put forth his dissent. And the judges, apparently, according to this one other judge that dissented, changed the procedure to rush out the verdict before he could put forth his dissent. So right there, that's unconstitutional. But an appeal to the Supreme Court was immediately filed by Texas Attorney Ken Paxton. On Friday, Justice Samuel Alito, who is the circuit justice for emergency applications from the 5th District, issued an administrative stay suspending the panel's ruling. Thank God. Because what this is it's supposed to be more or less of, see, the Supreme Court ruled that You can't redistrict based on racial lines. And so Pam Bondi told Texas you need to redraw the districts, not that so they're not based on racial lines. That's how Jasmine Crockett got her seat. And so they went ahead and redistricted it, but then this 3-judge panel said, well, because you undid racial districting, then that itself is racist, whatever. And so whether it's here nor there, I believe personally that there should be a bipartisan commission that does it. Because otherwise you're going to have states that have Democratic majorities redistrict in Democrats' favor, Republican states redistrict in Republicans' favor. And because they did this at Trump's urging, California did the same, and there's a whole bee's nest up there that's been kicked over. PJ Media, California scheming the next threat against election integrity. Despite fancying themselves as defenders of democracy, they always scheming ways to rig the game in their favor and cement a permanent grip on power. That's absolutely true. And that's what I was just talking about. Since the Republicans were trying to do it in Texas, then the Californians threatened to do it in California. They supposedly had a referendum where the voters who voted in a bipartisan commission for redistricting voted again to abolish the bipartisan commission on redistricting. So that's what PJ Media is alluding to, is that obviously they cheated in that referendum, because it's not who casts the votes, it's who counts the votes. Another article here from One American News. Doge quietly disbanded despite having 8 months remaining on the charter. That doesn't exist. Who said this? Well, it was Office of Personal Management Director Scott Cooper said it. The truth is, Doge may not have centralized leadership under U.S. Doge service, but the principles of Doge remain alive and well: deregulation, eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse, reshaping the federal workforce, making efficiency a first-class citizen, etc. Doge catalyzed these changes. The agency, along with the U.S. Office of Personal Management and the White House Office of Management and Budget, will institutionalize them, according to Cooper. So some say Doge is out. Some say it's not. I think it has to do a lot with the falling out of Elon Musk, because a lot of the Doge folks were working for Elon. And so, if they have allegiance to Elon, they don't have allegiance to the president. And, one thing Trump demands is loyalty. Speaking of unloyal, National Review, no, Ken Burns, the United States is not an Iroquois nation. I talked about this early on when I first watched the interview of Ken Burns on Sunday morning. And then I saw the Ken Burns, the United States, the new documentary, which is super duper woke. Yes, some things are accurate and historical, but the overall flavor is, we stole Indian land, and the only way we built the United States is with slaves. I mean, you get that kind of feeling throughout the whole thing. Like, they'll say something factual, and then they said, oh, but they were slaves, and I certainly don't condone any slavery or anything like that, but, it is what it is. The United States is the United States, and it needs to be reflected in the history. Sure, you could say what the Europeans did when they got here. I don't have a problem with that. But nobody of that's responsible. There's no blood libel, right? My relatives weren't even here. They were in Europe, right? They didn't come till the 20th century. So what happened in the conquest of the 15th or 16th or 17th century, that doesn't confront me. It shouldn't confront anybody that's living today. The mindset was different. In any case, the founders did not model us on the Six Nations, referring to the Native American Six Nations, and George Washington didn't tomahawk a Frenchman. And so the author says he didn't get very far to encounter a big whopper. The problem with the first episode start early. Burns kicks off by misleading his audience about the origins of American political ideas and adds to that deceptive history of a key battle. Like I previously said, Ken Burns made a woke. I knew this was coming. When he said he was going to, he's been working on this for 13 years. But I knew when he said, well, it's ready for, it's almost finished. I knew exactly what it's going to be. A woke mess. Right? Hey, I read Howard Zinn. We all know terrible things that nations do in certain, in historical account. I'm not going to contend that, but to look at it from today's perspective and purposely put in divisive things to make you feel bad about your nation, I don't think that's it's not conducive to building a cohesive nation. You got to take the good with the bad, right? And that's the problem with progressives. They want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. One American News, both sides baffled by Trump and Mamdani's cordial meeting. They emerged from the meeting seemingly in good spirits, highlighting their shared interests and love for the city and almost shrugging off past spats. I mean, it did seem a little bit of a bromance, said GOP Representative Nicole Malliotakis. Based on the election results, we knew Mamdani was charming, but who thought he'd be able to charm the president? I don't know if he charmed the president. This is the way of Trump is magnanimity. He's magnanimous. So it doesn't matter who it is. He tries to be friendly. You keep your enemies close. You keep your friends close and your enemies closer type of deal. There's no point in getting into a tug of war match here. Because Mamdani hasn't even taken office yet. So when he does, and he does something that hair lips the president, he's going to respond in kind. One American News again, FBI concludes crooks acted alone in assassination attempt by Trump. Now this is just ridiculous because certainly, crooks did not act alone. So, two things. First of all, there was a stand down, if you didn't know. That goes without saying. I mean, I don't want to rehash the whole thing. So, there was a stand down. So, when they say he acted alone, he was alone, right? Because even if he was goaded to doing it by somebody else, that's why they have the lone gunman theory is there's no conspiracy. He did it on his own. That's not true. There's always a conspiracy. He was alone, and that's what they want you to believe, but he was communicating with other people. He had encrypted apps contacting foreign people. He had that phone with him while he was on the roof. So we know that to be true, but he didn't act alone. The act was allowed to happen through a stand down. So from my point of view, that's not acting alone. And he was communicating with foreign actors. They're hiding that fact. So he didn't act alone. He didn't, who knows if he came up, who did he train with? Did he train with the FBI, Department of Homeland Security? What? There are a whole bunch of unanswered questions. And again, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino look like deers caught in the headlights. I'm telling you, the FBI they're fucking evil. They're not just incompetent. That's not the point. And that's what you're missing. The FBI is the CIA domestically. And they've been like that for some time. Probably since their inception. There's another headline here from the New York Post. Slenderman stabber Morgan Geyser captured following nationwide manhunt. If you didn't know anything about this, it's more about Satanism in the United States. Nationwide manhunt for Morgan Geyser, the Wisconsin woman convicted in 2014 Slender Man stabbing, this was during Obama, has come to an end. The Madison Police Department confirmed Geyser was taken into custody in Illinois at approximately 10:34 p.m. and ending the intense search. Geyser escaped after she cut off her Department of Corrections monitoring bracelet and fled a Madison group home Saturday night. Madison police announced her escape in social media post. So if you didn't know this, there were a few Slender Man stabbings. Again, that was during the inculcation of Satanism under Obama, where young kids were exploring Satanism, and the Slender Man is a book character that they believed was real, so they were seeing hallucinations of a shadowy figure, Slender Man, who's really a demon, I suppose, the same sort of thing. And this Slender Man, the demon, would tell young people that were fucking around with the occult to kill people. And wouldn't it be cool to kill people? It's sick, and a lot of this is still going on. But it was a spat of violence surrounding this Slender Man all at the same time, which leads me to believe, if you're more secular in your beliefs, that it was another psyop for young people. So if you don't think your mind is being manipulated by your phone scrolling, you should think twice about it. One America News, Rubio calls Geneva meeting with Ukrainian delegates probably the best since Trump returned to office. And also One America News, GOP Representative Michael McCall, he's a war hawk, urges Zelensky to reject Trump's peace proposal, advocates for ironclad security guarantees. I expected the same from Michael McCall. He's a war hawk, just like Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham has to walk a tightrope here because he supports the president, but he also supports war in Ukraine. Zero hedge G20 in South Africa ends with a whimper after Trump snubs event. South Africa is back in the news again after facing embarrassment yet again. South Africa's far-left government was hoping that the G20 summit held this week in Johannesburg would elevate the country's global position and garner them international attention and funding. This is the first time in history that the G20 has been held in South Africa. However, the Trump administration has made it clear that South African event is a nothing burger, and a real G20 will be held in U.S. and Florida in 2026. The meeting was not only snubbed by Trump, China, Russia, Argentina, Mexico, Indonesia did not send representatives either, likely because the summit had no momentum without U.S. participation. Indeed, trying to do shit without Trump or without the United States globally is a non-starter. So a bunch of you might have heard today already about this. Jerusalem Post has the article. Candace Owens claims Macron sent French-Israeli linked hit squad to assassinate her. That's not really what she said. Candace Owens claims that Macron's ordered an assassination plot against her. That's what she said. Alleging Israeli involvement, meaning there was one Israeli on the team, of course, although no evidence or official confirmation has been provided. No shit. That's what she said. You know, Candace Owens, she says things, I got information that, okay. Do I look like I listen to Q? Come on. I mean, I'm not saying that what she says is not true. I mean, if she ends up dead, there you go. But even if they leak this sort of information to her, it might be to scare her. They've tried this before, trying to scare Candace Owens because she claims Emmanuel Macron's wife is actually a man or was a man. Fox News, 50 kidnapped Catholic school students in Nigeria escape as some schools ordered to close. Pope Leo the 14th calls for immediate release of 253 students and 12 teachers that remain in captivity. It's right after we were saying that in Nigeria, they're killing, kidnapping Christians, mostly Boko Haram. Is that it? I think we did pretty good. It's like a half an hour. So like I said, I got my new technology up and running. There's some things that really aren't working here. So trying to figure out that usually my feed I could get my feed up on my monitor here, but it won't. Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't allow you to have a breakout. All right, appreciate you joining me today. Thanks again. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the podcast. Appreciate you. Join me every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. live stream on Rumble, other platforms as well. Don't forget to engage the channel. Remember, you're under attack psychologically and biologically. Stay hip to the trick. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. Respect.
I have rights. The New World Order.